in the morning. Jimmy Lakey on the radio. I got my coffee and cream. Jimmy's on the air. Wake up and start your day. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliance to get you on your way. Wake up, start your day with Jimmy Lakey.
All right, top of the morning to you, Lakey Unleashed behind the microphone once again. It's a Friday. How's everybody doing out there? But Friday, the 17th day of January. This is the final weekend that we will have to tolerate Joe Biden as the president of the United States of America. And after that, freedom, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last from the Biden crime family for a long, long time. Everybody looking forward to Monday? Monday, we got a big, this time Monday, our next show After this one, we'll be live in Lafayette, Colorado, doing the Inauguration Day party. I hope you plan to be a part of it. Now, we added a food truck. Some of you have been wanting a food truck at this thing, so we have added a food truck, and for that, I have to say you are welcome. Thank you very much. It's the Tacos El Chilango food truck is going to be there, the Casbar Cigar in Lafayette, Colorado. So make sure you're there. Get your butts there. Make sure you're there, and come partay with us for the food truck and the inauguration. It's a cigar is going to be smoked. It's going to be a fantastic time. So the food truck about 7:30, 7:45. They'll start serving some food up. You can buy your food from them. Come on in if you get your cigar and get ready. We'll do this show live this coming Monday, the inauguration day, at the Casbar Cigar in Lafayette, Colorado. All right, final weekend of the Joe Biden administration. Anybody see the Donald Trump inauguration photo? They do an official photo every year for the inauguration. I think we have a copy of it here. And this is an inauguration photo of Donald J. Trump. It's a very serious looking photo. If you compare it, what do you think of that, by the way? I like that. I like the look. It looks like he's a very determined man. I was talking to producer Chad right before the program started this morning, that if you look at Donald Trump's first inauguration photo, he's got his arms crossed and he's smiling for the camera. And that kind of shows, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to be the president, and not realizing he was walking into a bunch of traitorous, treasonous buzzsaws, in mainly the name of Democrats and some of them Republicans as well. He didn't recognize that. Now, this shows that, hey, I'm coming back. I'm back with a vengeance, and I know where all the landmines are at, and I'll be paying attention this time. So I think producer Chad said he wasn't sure he liked it. And I think standing alone, maybe you're like, well, that's a little intense for an inauguration photo, the presidential portrait, but maybe it's not. When you compare the first term and now you compare this one, you can see there's no naivete in this man's eyes. He knows exactly what he's walking into. He knows where he knows where, quote, the bodies are buried, and he knows who has done nasty, naughty, perverted, and gross things to him and to the Constitution. So anyway, give me your thoughts if you like the photo of Donald J. Trump. I changed it. You know how you can. I usually don't have a photo on my iPhone. But last night I actually just changed it so that if I call you and you have the iPhone, it pops up my photo, it's gonna look like Donald Trump's calling you, because I changed that to my image there. So you're welcome, and thank you for that. Let's see. JD Vance. See JD Vance, his photo. If we have that one, I don't know if we do. Yeah, he looks happy. That's Trump one. That's Trump first term. I'm just happy to be here. Got here from Kentucky or wherever I came from, Ohio, and doggone it, here we are. Donald Trump, on the other hand, Donald Trump is dead serious. Donald Trump knows exactly what is happening, and he's not going to be fooled again. So that's the rookie versus the veteran. I think is kind of how you can look at those two inauguration photos that are there. Right now, breaking news, Kristi Noem is under the watchful eye of the U.S. Senate, and she's being questioned about her what Homeland Security, I believe, is the office that she wants to be in charge of, and she's being grilled by the members of the U.S. Senate Homeland Security Committee or whatever. Is Senator Senator Macy Hirono? Is she on that committee? I don't know. I know she's on the Judiciary Committee, because I am telling you that Macy Hirono is a dirty old woman. I dubbed her early this week as Horny Hirono, because she asked this question all the time. Let me play this video. This is Horny Hirono. She asked it of Kristi Noem. She asked it of Doug Burgum. She asked it of Pete Hegseth. I don't know if she's on the committee for Kristi Noem, but you folks in Hawaii out there, I know it's like middle of the night in Hawaii right now, but you've got a real doozy in this woman. Horny Hirono. I think she's just a dirty old woman that wants to hear dirty stories and hopes somebody is going to say, yeah, sometimes I did this. I don't know what's the point. It's really an embarrassment to the U.S. Senate. And producer Chad said, how do people like that get on the committee? I said, well, have you looked at how many people are on these committees that these Democrats? It's like it's like going to the shelter, and it's all the kids, all the puppies no one else would want to adopt. They're the ugly ones. Those Democrats on those committees are just crazy. I've got video of Bernie Sanders, and he's the pride and joy of the radicalized Democrat Party. So here we go. Let me play this Macy Hirono video. This is her with Doug Burgum yesterday, but she's asked this of every person And it's just absolutely positively ridiculous. And anybody that's on the Hirono staff that thinks this is, I don't know what she thinks it gets her. Is just putting her in a position of self-righteousness? I don't know. It's the strangest damn question you could probably think of. But she asked Pam Bondi the same question. Here she is.
As part of my responsibilities to ensure the fitness of nominees before any of the committees on which I asked the following two initial questions. First is,
I asked the initial questions. Is she drunk? Because she was the one asking Pete Hegseth about going to work drunk. And I swear to goodness, horny Hirono is either drunk or she's doing something there. Oh, go ahead, play.
Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator, I have not.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
I have not.
To the first question, I wondered, I will play you one more time. I want you to hear this
Thank
again.
You, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Slur her words.
As part of my responsibilities to ensure the fitness of...
It's her responsibility. Do the people of Hawaii vote that as her responsibility? Do they say, hey, you've got a responsibility to find out if they diddled themselves or anyone else?
Nominees before any of the committees on which
Listen to this.
I asked the following two initial questions. First is, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors?
I think the funny answer, and I wouldn't say it in the hearing, but, it's been a while, but yeah, I have. What is she?
Or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
Only on Tuesdays I do that. She's an idiot.
Have you
she's
ever
a bona fide idiot.
Or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
I have not.
Yeah, it cost me a couple of million, but we wiped it off the record. I don't know what she's... Anyway, people of Hawaii... you ought to be ashamed of yourself. But I'm watching some of these Democrat senators, and I'm watching some of those senators and going, dang it. I don't know how they get elected. But then again, if we're here in Colorado, we've sent Marble-Mouth Michael Bennett and John Hickenlooper, the barmaid, up to Washington. So, yes, I'm picking on Hawaii, but I'm telling you, we've got our own little doozies from... At least I don't think Michael Bennett or John Hickenlooper from my state of Colorado are making asses of themselves. They're probably not even qualified to be on any of the committees. They're not on these fancy committees because they won't ask stupid questions like that. All right, let's see. We've got the pardon watch. Oh, by the way, Supreme Court has said, just ruled, breaking news, that TikTok can be banned in the United States. So the way the congressional bill was written is that they had to be divested and put up for sale or be sold by this Sunday, or else they were going to be put out of business and would no longer be able to operate. Now, I guess from what I'm reading is there is a 90-day waiver that the President of the United States can sign, and the President of the United States can sign and give an additional 90 days. And I think that's what Donald J. Trump is probably going to do. He's going to give an additional 90 days, and then getting the 90 days, see if they can work out some sale. Kevin O'Leary from Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, he's got a group together that really wants to do it. There's other groups that have wanted to do it, buy it. They're interested in doing it. TikTok says it ain't for sale. They'll shut down. And here's what the shutdown would look like in America. If it does shut down, it basically means the Apple and the Google Store, Apple and Google Store basically will no longer allow updates, and eventually it will just kind of expire and there'll be no new downloads. So the Supreme Court, breaking news, has ruled that the Congress is okay and it's constitutional that TikTok can be banned in the United States of America. Here's something else interesting I learned yesterday doing a little research and reading. Is the bill did not just pertain to TikTok. There are other apps out there, foreign-owned apps and entities that can be banned. And so you can mark my word that I'm guessing there's a couple of more of those that will be. And I learned this about TikTok. I'm not a TikTok user. I've thought about it. My son is, and a lot of friends aren't. I don't support the commie Chinese. 60% of the TikTok company, I think, is owned by worldwide investor companies. It's not solely owned by the communist Chinese. I think there's a book called Red Note or Red Notebook that actually is a commie Chinese owned. It's solely owned by the Chinese government, and that's available in the App Store. So in theory, they could be banned. Any of these things could be banned by this law that was passed, and the Supreme Court says the law is constitutional, and so TikTok can be banned. We will follow that with a sharp eye and see exactly how that works out. So I don't know, but it's going to be. Rand Paul said last night, he said, We act like we're so worried about the communists and the Chinese, and we should be. But, and I've said this before when I was, when this topic was first up, I said, I think I'm just as worried about Zuckerberg, Facebook, YouTube. I'm worried about them. They're propagandists as well, have been. They've been propagandists for the Fauci, propagandists for the pharmaceutical companies. They've been squelchers of free speech. What are they doing with my data? What are they doing with my information? What are they doing to find out what's happening on my phone outside of their own apps? So I'm sitting here thinking we're told that we should be very afraid of the commie Chinese with the TikTok, but I think I'm afraid of a lot of the commies that run some of the things in Silicon Valley. By the way, Mark, what's your backup this week? The big news happened this week. Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Meta, which is also Facebook, has said that he goes on the Joe Rogan podcast and he announces that the administration was basically forcing them to pull information down, threatening their livelihood, yelling, cursing, screaming, that the administration was really telling them that free speech was not allowed. And if the government didn't agree with it, the government wanted them to pull it down or else. Shouldn't that be a bigger story than it is? I know on this podcast or this streamcast, you and I have talked about whether Zuck is really a changed man. And we've talked about whether or not he really meant it. And if Kamala Harris was elected, would he have gotten rid of the fact checkers? I don't know all the answers to that. Would he have really pulled the tampons out of the men's room at Meta if Kamala Harris had won? I don't know the answer to all that. But here's what I do know. You have a guy with one of the largest social media and media companies in the nation that goes out and says, listen, this administration has been telling us that we can only allow certain types of speech. This administration has been threatening us to behave in a way that probably is antithetical to the Constitution. But we had to go with it because they're threatening regulation in the Federal Trade Commission and, all sorts of stuff. So we really were in a tough spot because Joe Biden, and it would send his ilk out there to scream. Let me ask you, isn't that a big story? I think that's a pretty big story that the United States government has been telling a private entity that they need to screen the speech of private citizens or else they're going to act as the government's jackbooted thugs, and they're going to make sure that the government message stays on point and it can't be spoken any other way. But it's not a big story. I was perusing the news just last evening, going through some websites, seeing what other sites were saying and other sources were saying. And no one's covering that. You would think after the Joe Rogan interview that you'd think 60 Minutes or Face the Nation or somebody would be requesting and demanding and begging Mark Zuckerberg to come on there and tell the story about how Joe Biden and his jackbooted thug administration were really pressuring him to do naughty things that violate the Constitution. And yet, you know what I have to say? I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. I was on the CNNs, all the websites you can imagine, and it is really a non-story out there, and I just find that interesting. Listen, the most frightening thing out there is people don't realize that you're being told what the news you get from mainstream media or heritage media, if you will, is really just propaganda. They're telling you the stories you want to know. It should be a big story that Joe Biden and his administration were trying to threaten Zuckerberg, but it's not a big story at all. Not a big story at all. No big story at all. It's not even a story out there. And that ought to scare the heck out of you. It really should. So anyway, we'll talk about that if you want to talk. Don't forget, sound off in all the chat rooms. All the platforms have comment areas, and you can do that. A lot of you are commenting out there. Horny Hirono. I want that to spread. Everyone, please start calling Macy Hirono Horny Hirono. She's trying to keep Stormy Daniels smear relevant and getting Netflix Peacock documentary kickbacks. Maybe, I don't know. She's a dirty old woman. I mean, if you're an average citizen, if you were let's say you were going into a workplace and you're taking a new job and you're getting interviewed and they bring in the old nagging, goofy HR woman or the goofy CEO of the company, and she's going to be the final interview, and she sits down across from you as a grown-ass person and says, well, I have to ask you, have you diddled someone or done something naughty, and have you ever had... If they ask you that question, that I think in itself is a sexual harassing question. I really think in the workplace, wouldn't that be sexual harassment? Anybody in the world of HR, would you ever be able to ask this question of anybody in a job interview? Maybe if you're going to get a secret clearance, I guess. I don't know. But in an average job interview, which that's what this is. And by the way, has Maisie Hirono, what's her sex life about? Has she ever done something? Has she ever grabbed the ass of a staffer? I don't know. I mean, there's millions of dollars through the past many years that have gone out in secret hush money settlements from the Congress for people that were groping and grabbing and doing things. And hey, we'll sweep this under the rug. It won't hit the news media. Here's a couple of $1 million. So I would like to have the personnel file of Mazie Hirono, Horny Hirono, and find out if Horny Hirono has ever had anything alleged against her. I mean, in the workplace, if any of you have an HR background, can you tell me, is this question ever appropriate to ask of your employee before hiring or after they're hired?
Mr.
I don't know.
Chairman, welcome. As part of my responsibilities to ensure the fitness of nominees before any of the committees on which I sit, I asked the following two initial questions. First is, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator, I have not.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
I have not.
I have not. Again, I don't know if it's ever appropriate. I don't. Anybody ever been asked a question like that? I don't know. Horny Hirono is her name, and she's a senator from Hawaii. By the way, listen to the way she talks, kind of slurs her words together. I wonder if she's been taking speech lessons from Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. I call him Marble Mouth Bennett. It sounds like he's got a bunch of marbles in his mouth. Maybe he's been. I don't know, man. These senators, you would think, at least in my Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Jimmy Stewart world, we could have some great orators and some intellect sitting there on the desk asking questions about things that really are relevant and that really matter and you're really going to get an answer to. That would be the best thing. They've done background checks on the answer to that question is already known, by the way. She's just Horny Hirono's hoping to get a dirty story. She's hoping to get publicity. She wasn't hugged enough as a child or something. But she's really a disgusting lady. They already know the background of these people. They do background checks, and if anything like that had ever happened, it would already be up. Jim says, waiting for one of the nominees to respond. Does this include unwanted sniffing of young women's hairs? Did you ask your esteemed president this question? That's true. That's very, very true. Very, very true. Joe Biden's sniffing hair up there. And has Horny Hirono ever been bothered by that? Or is Horny Hirono maybe enjoying that? I don't know. These are sick people, my friends. These are really, really sick people. Matter of fact, speaking of their obsession with small children on the American left and just their lack of principles and a lack of just scruples of how to behave themselves, this is the old Tim Kaine who Hillary Rodham Clinton wanted as a running mate. This is him trying to have a gotcha session with Pete Hegseth by bringing up things that have been proven false about Pete Hegseth and an affair that he allegedly had, and it was proven investigated he never had this affair. But Tim Kaine has no principles, no scruples. Tim Kaine is an absolute idiot elected into the U.S. Senate. And this is Tim Kaine bringing up a small child, a 7-year-old, disgusting behavior to try to make Pete Hegseth realize, or to try to keep Pete Hegseth out of the Department of Defense. And the more they fight Pete Hegseth, the more you kind of think, well, maybe he's the right guy for the job, because it sure does piss these people off. And if it pisses Tim Kaine off, you probably know it's the right thing. If Tim Kaine is bothered by it, it's probably the right thing. Here we go. This is the confirmation hearing, and this is Tim Kaine bringing up Pete Hegseth's 7-year-old daughter as flippantly as Joe Biden sniffs 7-year-old's hair. Go ahead.
Cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was, and you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
Well,
it was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And
I'm telling you, these people are disgusting, and more than ever before, I'm telling you, I'm thinking it's on evident that these people are just desperate and grasping for straws. When you're trying to bring up someone's an alleged indiscretion that never happened, was proven not to happen, but in order to try to recaptivate the talking point, you bring up a 7-year-old child. You are disgusting human being. Anyway, glad to have all of you here on the radio show. There's a question that's out in all the platforms out there, and it says, "Is Jill Biden? Do you feel sorry for Jill Biden?" That was asked earlier in the chat room. You say, where does that context come from? Well, there's a story, we mentioned it yesterday, that Jill Biden has done an interview in which she said she's really bothered, and she's the holder of the grudges in the family, and she's really bothered at the fact that Nancy Pelosi, she felt came with a shiv and kicked Joe Biden out of the race. Does anybody feel bad for Jill Biden? Does anybody feel bad? I mean, if it's a normal person, you might be able to kind of understand that. But does anybody think Jill Biden deserves any sympathy here? I mean, you could argue that Nancy Pelosi did and took the role that Jill Biden should have done in telling Joe Biden, I'm sorry, Joe, you're not cut to do this. You may want to do it. You may think you should have done it. Maybe you could have done it 10 years ago, but you're not here and you're not running for re-election, to say the least. But Jill Biden didn't do it because Jill Biden, in my estimation, maybe one of the most selfish people on the planet. And Dennis says Jill Biden gets what she deserves for deceiving Americans about her husband's health and using her position for political power. I think that's how I feel. If it's a normal incident, you don't want a friend of 50 years. But were they really friends of 50 years? Basically, they said we're friends of 50 years. What happened 50 years ago? Joe Biden went to the U.S. Senate or went to the Congress, and that's what happened. So basically, they're friends only because Joe Biden got a career in politics, and I doubt they're having pink crumpets and going on girls' trips together. I don't think they are. But does anybody feel bad for Jill Biden? I mean, I don't. I can't find any reason to feel bad for her. Jill Biden set her husband up for failure, allowed him to be humiliated probably more than any human should have been, even though Joe Biden's not a nice guy. If you're going to feel a sympathy figure here, it's in that whole saga of Jill and Nancy. I really feel bad for Joe Biden that Jill didn't stop this thing, didn't call the family together and stop this thing. And Nancy had to step in and do what she had to do. Now, was Nancy Pelosi thinking about America and thinking about saving democracy? No. Nancy Pelosi was just thinking about political power. If Nancy Pelosi, who knew that Joe was losing it up here and his cognitive decline was happening, if Nancy Pelosi was doing it for the right reason, then Nancy Pelosi would have insisted they had a primary rather than an appointment of some candidate. And the sheeples of the Democrat Party said, oh, look, Kamala's there. They all chanted and cried when she walked out on the stage. You bunch of doofuses. That's what you are. Any Democrat out there that thought it was okay for them to install Kamala at the top, and now maybe you look back and go, well, that was a bad idea. We shouldn't have gone along with that. But if at the time you were wearing your Kamala shirt and you were crying at the convention and you were pretending that Kamala was the right person, you are a doofus is what you are. You're a person that's willing to be deceived and able to be deceived. And you're a person that just believes everything they told you. You were played in the Democrat Party. There's an op-ed piece in the New York Post right now that says the Republicans are at least the party of a political primary. At least the Republicans had a political primary. Democrats didn't. They installed somebody, and I don't know how it makes you Democrats feel out there, but you should feel like an idiot that you got played, that you, for some reason, approved the fact that there was no primary. You should have rebelled against that. So this question of the day, do you feel bad for Jill Biden? And yes, it's politics and it's nasty, but politicians have feelings too. I'm sure that there's things that do bother them and things that do hurt their feelings and things that are said, and you have to have real thick skin to be in politics. But Dr. Jill Biden is not somebody that I can have much sympathy for. There's just no sympathy for Dr. Jill Biden because I think she allowed this thing to play out so long, and she was the one possibly that's been running the White House for a long time. So anyway, that's the question of the day. Do you feel any sympathy for Jill Biden, and who feels betrayed by Nancy Pelosi? Said we were friends for 20-something years. All right, the Supreme Court breaking news this morning has said that TikTok can be banned in the United States of America. We will see while that happens. In the law passed by Congress, there is a provision, if I'm reading it right, I'm not a scholar on this thing, but if I'm reading it right, that the president can take executive action and extend the deadline for 90 days. The deadline is this Sunday. Now, Dr. Joe Biden has said he's not going to take action on it. He's going to let it stand. But, 12 hours after the ban goes in place, Donald Trump's going to be the president, so I'm sure he could step in and give a 90-day extension. I don't believe there's any way, and I'm glad there's not, that Congress has passed a law. I don't believe that Joe Biden or Donald Trump could come in and wave a magic wand and say this law goes away. It's passed. It's upheld by the Supreme Court. But there is a parameter in which the president or somebody can extend the window of cancellation. So we shall see what happens. That the Supreme Court has said TikTok can be banned in the United States of America. Anybody out there, all of you chatters out there, I know some of you are watching us on the YouTubes, you're watching us on the Instagrams, you're watching us on the Facebook feeds. We're on a lot of different feeds, a lot of different feeds, a lot of different access to people. Let me ask you this question. Is anybody out there use the TikTok? I mean, I know the kids use it. I have a couple of adult friends that have sent me things and said, hey, watch this on TikTok. And I'm like, why would I be on TikTok? I'm a grown-ass man. But I'm being honest. I'm not going to judge you. How many of you adults use TikTok? Grown people use TikTok, and what do you find it helpful to do? I do good to keep up with my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram. I do good to keep up with all that. But I'm just asking you, what do you find it useful to do? Help me out. What is TikTok useful for a grown adult? Because I don't how is it different and better than some of these other platforms? You let me know. Let me know. Make a comment out there, whatever platform you are listening on as well. All right, let's see. We're coming up in just a moment. We're going to have John Gordon on the program from the John Gordon Show. Got a couple of different topics we want to hit with him. But if you, Rich says I've never used it. I won't say I've never used it. I've seen things on TikTok. My son has showed me. I've had people send me links for things on TikTok, and because I don't have the app on my phone, I can't open them. So I've never used it. I think there was something that used to be when the technology first came out that you could put your face on a photo and they would make you dance and stuff. I think that was called TikTok. I think that was the early days of TikTok. And I've used that, but the app TikTok I've never used. I've never used it. Maybe if somebody tells me I can. I mean, the more I think about it, I'm probably more of a danger of privacy from YouTube or Google dialing into my stuff than just as bad as the communist Chinese. So is that what keeps anybody from using it? That's what's kept me from using it. It's sold as a commie app. But then I'm listening to Rand Paul last night, and Rand Paul says, listen, he's just as concerned about Silicon Valley and the jackwagons out there. So I don't know. Help me out here. If anybody out there has used TikTok, have you found any benefit from it for TikTok? I don't know. It seems like the demographic of that's pretty young. I don't know if there's I can't even open it. People send me TikTok things like, hey, watch this. They send me a text, and I can't open that because I can't. I can't open it. I don't have TikTok on the phone. So Jim says, I've watched and shared some TikTok videos through the Facebook, but never used the app. Okay, I'm trying to find out if somebody's used the app. Please, Jim, great. I'm glad to hear it. I've seen some things posted. I can't open them, but I'm trying to figure out the benefit of it. Why is this such a big deal? Why do the kids like the TikTok more than they like the Instagrams? And why is that the big thing? The Snapchat's also a big one. And a long time ago, I put a Snapchat app on my phone, the Snapchat app, and I did it because it was a radio show that I did. We're talking about the social media platforms, and I put Snapchat. I think it's still on my phone. I guess it is. It's probably expired by now, but I don't understand it. What is it about this TikTok thing? Now, one of the things happening with TikTok out there is that a lot of people make money off of it. They're called influencers. And when they get to a certain number of followers and they do a song, a dance, a reel or something, and they can make money off of it. And a lot of people are running their business off TikTok. So I've seen these commercials that air. They're trying to sway the American people on TikTok. And I've seen these commercials that sometimes run, and they're talking about small businesses that have been birthed out of the heart of TikTok. I've never used it. If you're a TikTok user, I do not judge you. I just want to know how you use it as an adult. I know how the kids use it. I know my son. It's all about chatting. It's kind of similar to everything else. It's just kind of narcissism and look at me and how many likes can I get on my post and follow my story, if you will. But I don't know the benefit of it for an adult. So if anybody can help me on that, TikTok, what benefit does TikTok have over other social media, especially for grown adults that are probably watching this little streamcast we have going on right now? Comment in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. All the platforms, whether you're on the Rumble, whether you're on the YouTubes, whether you're on the X, or whether you're on the Facebook pages, you can always. As a matter of fact, I will go right now to the Instagram. It doesn't feed into the studio. And and see if there's any comment. But make a comment. Tell me the benefit of this TikTok thing, and why would it be a big deal if TikTok goes away in America? Because the Supreme Court has ruled that TikTok is going to have to it has to be. The law says they have to shut down and stop operating in America unless they sell. And now there's a 90-day extension that the president, I believe, can give them. And Joe Biden has said he's not going to do it, but I guess Donald Trump probably will. But TikTok has said they're just going to leave the American market, which would be an unbelievable move if they did. But they say they'll leave the American market if they do. Now, yeah, well, it's follow it very closely, my friends, because the kids are addicted to the TikTok, and I can't figure out why. And if you can help me, let me know. Let me know about that. All right, one more quick reminder that coming up this Monday is our inauguration day. We're going to be free of Joe Biden coming about 12:01 on Monday afternoon, heading in after the noon hour. Eastern time. That's about 10:01 Mountain time. And we're having this streamcast party. The Lakey Unleashed streamcast party is going to be live in Colorado. You can come in flying from all over the country, flying from wherever you're at, drive in, whatever you do. And we're going to be at the Casbar Cigar Lounge. Casbar Cigar. It's in Lafayette, Colorado. It's about halfway between Denver and Boulder, not far from the University of Colorado campus, 5 or 6 miles from there, not far from Fort Collins, kind of a central location for the most part. And we're going to do the show live. There's going to be a food truck there. Food trucks are going to have coffee. It's going to be a lot of celebration. And yes, there will be cigars there. You can purchase from the Casbar location. Casbar in Lafayette, Colorado. The doors will open just before 8 o'clock. The food truck will start serving the foods and bring some money, bring some cash for the food. And it's going to be a big party as we celebrate the end of the Joe Biden administration and the beginning of the Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance administration. All right, question of the day one more time. Do you feel bad for Joe Biden? She feels slighted by Nancy Pelosi. I don't feel at least bit bad for Joe Biden because Joe Biden, I think, betrayed us by Nancy Pelosi stepped in and did what Jill should have done and what the family should have done. By the way, I'm going to go to my guest here, but I want to ask you a question, a real serious question. I think we kind of know that the Biden family is a corrupt bunch of weird people. You got Hunter Biden. They showed the behind the scenes of Joe Biden giving his final speech in the Oval Office this week. And there was Hunter, and there was Jill, and there was Kamala, and there was Doug, I think is his name. They were all sitting there, and nobody else was there. Anybody? If you know the story, I think I might know the answer. But is Joe Biden's daughter ever around? Because a lot of times he'll be surrounded by people. I don't know which one his daughter is, but that's the daughter he took the shower with, right? She took a shower together. So anyway, I'm just curious about that. I don't know which one his daughter is, but she definitely was not in the peanut gallery in the Oval Office the other night, and I just thought that was weird. That was such an emotional time. Jill was holding Kamala's hand. Hunter was looking baffled, like staring off into the distance, like wondering, did I hide cocaine anywhere else? There are more drugs here. We got to get him out of here before Donald comes in. I mean, Hunter's looking has a lot of consternation on his face, but I don't think their daughter Jill was there. I don't know. Maybe she's in the shower. I don't know where she was at. So, all right. Welcome to the program, everybody. Jimmy Lakey is my name. It's the Lakey Unleashed Daily Update. Let us know if you're new to the program. If you've just started watching us, let us know if we've only been doing this about 4 weeks now. But if you're new to it, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Sign us on all the platforms. You can make comments, and producer Chad sees them and puts them up on the screen as appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, a gentleman who does his own talk show, nationally platformed as he is. His name is John Gordon, host of the Truth with John Gordon program, and I welcome him into the House of Lakey and Lakey Unleashed. John, welcome in, sir. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Nice to be back with you.
Good to have you here, sir. Well, we've got a couple of topics I want to hit with you, but one of those is obviously the big news is the changing of the guard in Washington, D.C., and the Joe Biden's final weekend, and more commutations from Joe Biden for some drug sentences. Give me your thoughts. What are we watching happening? How historic is this?
Well, I don't think we've seen the end of Joe Biden's administration just yet. I have been predicting for a couple of months that on Sunday night, somewhere between the hour of 10 p.m. and midnight, we will see a barrage, a rash of pardons. I'm thinking Jim Biden, Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, Adam Kinzinger, Nancy Pelosi. The Biden reign of terror is almost over, but we're not out of the woods yet. I think we've got some more bad news to come before he's finished.
Let me ask you this question. To me, these preemptive pardons that they're talking about, has that ever been tested in front of the Supreme Court? Has anybody ever verified that those are actually legitimate? That you can, because it seems like a very dangerous place to be going. That if I'm going to have my friends commit some crimes, I'm going to have them do some things, and right before I leave office, I'll pardon them, and they'll be off the hook before they get caught.
The amount of hypocrisy and duplicity that the Democratic Party is willing to engage in is just mind-boggling to me. They talk about Donald Trump winning a Supreme Court case that granted all presidents immunity for their official acts, as if this was some horrible thing that Trump was going to take advantage of and commit all sorts of crimes. The fact of the matter is, they cannot pin anything on him. They have looked in every corner of his life, and all they can do is make up spurious charges and invent these prosecutions that have gone nowhere. Yet they are preemptively pardoning people that have not even been charged of a crime. How does that work? How do you reconcile those things? It's just absolutely bizarre to me.
It's bizarre to me as well. John Gordon, my guest, if you're just listening to the program, some of you only take the audio feed, which is fine. He has a program called The Truth with John Gordon. I'm sitting here thinking, how do you justify that? I mean, they're worried about Dr. Fauci. What do they think he's... To pardon someone preemptively, you're saying, you know what, they're going to have a legitimate way to make up a charge against Liz Cheney. Well, what are they afraid of? Or what charge do they think that the Justice Department under Pam Bondi is going to make up about Dr. Fauci? You don't just say, I charge you with a crime. You've got to be able to name a crime. What crime are they afraid that Dr. Fauci committed?
Well, I think you make an excellent point. Did you watch any of the confirmation hearings this week? And did you see Adam Schiff going after Pam Bondi and saying, do you know of any predicate existing that might justify charging Liz Cheney? Well, yeah. How about witness tampering, lying before a congressional committee? I mean, I can think of several crimes. Of course, I kind of still want to know whose cocaine. I heard you talking about cocaine. I still kind of want to know whose coke it was in the White House. You know, and I know, and your listeners know that the Secret Service knows exactly whose DNA was on that little baggie. And some people speculate that it could be Kamala Harris. I don't know. She acts like she's on something. Now, I know a good portion of the time she is slightly inebriated. That video of her from Hawaii after she lost the election was an embarrassment. I mean, she's obviously sloshed. Where are her handlers when they need them?
I was watching this video of Macy Hirono. I've been calling her because of the questions she keeps asking all these senators. Have you ever had sexual relations with someone unadvanced or whatever? All the Macy Hirono questions she's asking about sexual harassment. I've dubbed her, and pardon me if this offends anybody, but I called her Horny Hirono. I think she's just a dirty old woman that is wanting to hear some dirty stories
from others.
She's like, oh, please tell me something dirty. I ain't getting no action in my life. I don't know, but she sounds like she's a drunk woman as well. She's the one that asked Pete Hegseth about showing up to work drunk, and I'm thinking her and Kamala might have been drinking out there in Hawaii together. Just speculation on my part.
Well, you know, they say that Congress people, when they get to Washington, say, how did I ever possibly get here? And after a month, they're asking, how in the world did these people, these other congressmen ever get here? Because they're whacked. She's a good example of that. And why the people of California cannot see through Adam Schiff and Adam Kinzinger, and why they would allow these people to become elected to high office, especially Schiff. I mean, the guy is just a disgrace. There's nobody. Did you ever watch Jim Baker when he was a preacher?
Yeah. Jim and Tammy Faye.
every now and then, when I was younger, I would be channel surfing and I would land on Jim Baker and Tammy Faye, and I would find myself lingering there just so I could stay there to dislike them because you knew they were such frauds. And I feel the same way with Adam Schiff. There's no one that I watch that I feel is more duplicitous and just makes you want to dislike him more than him and maybe Alejandro Mayorkas. But only 3 more days, and we'll get the sunshine and let the good times roll.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, we're watching these California fires burn, and you look at these inept politicians, Karen Bass, the mayor, who was almost the vice president if Kamala Harris wouldn't have been there. Karen Bass showing her just incompetence. You've got Gavin Newsom. You just look at the people of California and say, I know there's a lot of people outside of LA and San Francisco that are better than that, but you would think that the rest of the state, it's pretty obvious how disgusting and horrible these people are, but Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, Adam Schiff, they get elected out there.
I suspect, without proof, without evidence, but I suspect that the corruption in California runs so deep and so wide that you cannot even begin to estimate it. Why do I say that? Billions of dollars were taxed and raised to build water reservoirs. It was passed 10 years ago. The money has been taxed. Where did it go? But there's not one reservoir that has been constructed. And they do have a reservoir right there near the Pacific Palisades, and it is empty. And Trump has said, and I believe him, that you capture the runoff from the snow melt, and you capture the rain from Northern California, where it actually does rain a lot, and you allow that water to find its way to Los Angeles and the reservoirs to collect it. And you solve Southern California's water problem. And then Gavin Newsom says, oh, that's just not true. Okay, well, let me tell you, it's not Friday. It's just not true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just insulting to the intelligence of a normal person when he says, well, it's just not true. Well, the sun's not shining. It's just not true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd.
Gavin Newsom can't stand too close to those fires because his hair will catch on fire. That's how he's just but they keep electing him, and you just never, you just shake your head and say, what the heck is going on here? You mentioned we're just a couple of days away from a new regime, a new administration, and we probably have some dark days, some strange pardons coming down. I wouldn't be surprised if he just names all the people on the January the 6th committee and pardons all of them, which would be interesting, John. If they pardon all of them, destroying evidence. Where's the evidence that we hear Liz Cheney and Kissinger have destroyed? Well, that's a crime. So if you get a preemptive pardon that stands up, and that's legal to do preemptive pardons, well, he didn't pardon the staff member that was running things through the shredder. So are Liz Cheney and these J6 committee people going to get a pardon by Joe Biden, and yet the staff member that was carrying out the orders doesn't get the pardon? Are they going to be the ones that face the consequence if a crime was committed?
Well, so what I have advocated for the better part of a year is that when Trump gets in, and I used to say if he gets in, and there's still a teeny tiny a concern of mine is whether he will be able to be safely installed in the White House. I mean, there's just very little doubt in my mind that Butler, Pennsylvania was an inside job. If you look at all the errors and omissions, at some point you've got to say nobody could have allowed these things to happen unless it was intentional. And I very much do worry about our future president's safety. And I want him to be able to take the oath of office on Monday and get him in the White House safely and securely, and then protect him. I do worry about that because you've got not only the people in Washington that hate him because they know that he's going to come after him, He's not going to go after him because he wants retaliation or being petty. But those people put this country through unmitigated hell. And they wasted your money and mine on multiple political witch hunts for the sole purpose of precluding Donald Trump from becoming president. And now that they've lost at every single turn, they're desperate. And they've got to know that they are going to be called to task for the dastardly deeds that they've done. So I have said for the better part of a year, let's take the moral high ground. Absolutely investigate, conduct trials, and have fair, impartial jurors determine the guilt or innocence of these people. And then, Mr. President Trump, pardon them. Bring the country together. Let's don't divide the country over bickering over whether it was fair or right to investigate and prosecute these people. So you just pardon them. But the truth is out. Yeah. That's what I want. I want a cleansing of our federal government, which I have concluded is rotten to its core. The CIA has infiltrated every single department of the federal government. They have CIA personnel embedded even in the White House, in the Department of Defense, throughout the federal government. It's got to stop. A very respected, well-known national correspondent who lives in Washington, who lives in that environment, told me you can count on one hand the number of members of Congress, both houses, who are either not compromised or on the take. Now, I don't know whether that's true, but you look at all the rhetoric and all the vitriol that come out of both parties, and you say, great, way to fight. Where are the consequences?
Yeah.
They're none.
All
they do is bring them up there and belittle them on national television so you can look like a superhero and then do absolutely nothing. I think it's a sham. I really have come to the conclusion it is a sham.
A lot of people always Trey Gowdy. Never met him. Don't have anything bad to say about him, other than whatever happened. I mean, he was a great prosecutor. He'd have Hillary Clinton up there. Hillary would scream, "What difference does it make?" And everybody's like, "Gotta get her. Go get her, Trey." Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. You look at Butler, Pennsylvania. They did all this investigation. They did all this. We know more about so many other things. We still don't know about that shooter in Butler, Pennsylvania. We don't know why a kid that cleaned bedpans at a nursing home had several phones. We don't know what the accountability was. Anybody ever disciplined, fired, cut loose? I don't even think they've announced a new Secret Service chief to take over under the new administration. I mean, there's just so many things.
Ronald Rutrow.
Yeah, you still got him, and hopefully he's fired on day one if he hasn't stepped down. And it's really just bizarre that we just kind of go along with it. With Trey Gowdy or this Republican or Jim Comer, they made it look real good, but nothing ever happens. You have these show trials, but nothing ever happens. And they say, well, it's not our fault that didn't happen. Well, whose fault is it? Somebody's got to be held accountable. No one in D.C. gets held accountable.
Well, you and I say it just identically. I was home from the fourth grade on November 22nd, 1963, when John Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. I have studied that assassination for literally 65 years. I have gotten my hands on everything that I could read, watched all the videos on YouTube and the documentaries and the 60-minute specials that have been played over the years. I consider myself pretty much an authority on the Kennedy assassination. I have concluded with 100% certainty in my own mind that Allen Dulles planned, orchestrated the assassination of the most popularly elected president of our lifetime up until that point. And that is wrong. It is as wrong as it gets. And then Lyndon Johnson, J. Edgar Hoover, and a whole cast of characters, including people that I really respected, like Richard Russell and Gerald Ford and the senator from Louisiana, Hale Boggs. They served on the Warren Commission. How did they let them get away with it? Richard Russell did not want to sign the Warren Commission final report. He told Lyndon Johnson he did not want to sign it. That is well documented. So our own federal government killed our democratically elected president. Now, roll the tape forward to July 13th, 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania. The similarities are undeniable. In Dallas, the parade route was organized in a way that violated the Secret Service's own rules. It required a more than a 90-degree turn to go off of Elm Street onto Houston, or was it vice versa, Houston on Elm? And the Secret Service rules required all windows to be shut and secured. They also had a minimum detail that had to be present for protection of the president. None of those things happened. The hairpin turn, the Secret Service detail was reduced that day, and the windows were allowed to remain open. We could talk until the cows come home about it, so I won't. But you look at Butler, you look at the protected area of that venue, and I've seen it. There is an absolute slice of a pie that was taken out of the circumference of the secure zone, and it was the AGR building. Then you've got Thomas Maxwell Crooks, who ostensibly was the would-be assassin, who went to the shooting range for 2 or 3 months prior to the attempt, and he was accompanied by somebody. But in the logs from the shooting range, that person's name is redacted. I want to know who it was. There are breadcrumbs from Galaxy Place in Washington to Michael Crooks's house in Pennsylvania. Cell phone breadcrumbs. I want to know who was it that traveled from Washington to Crooks's home 2 or 3 times leading up to July the 13th. Who was it? Then, last little factoid here. Maxwell Urich. He was a strange dude. He fought in the Ukraine. He had supposed alleged ties to the CIA. He showed up in Portland, Atlanta, DC, all the hot spots of the 2019 riots. He is alleged to have had ties with Ralph. Ralph was the guy that was the attempted assassin in West Palm Beach. The closer you look, the spookier it gets. Now, Maxwell Urich had gauges that he had taken out of his ear. The ear healed, but it left a scar. You zoom in on the shooter on the AGR building, that person has a scar. He also appears to have a tattoo on his forearm. Crooks had no tattoos, but Maxwell Urich did. Now, here's where the Twilight Zone really gets going. Maxwell Urich's parents filed a missing persons report on him on July the 14th, 2024. We need to know who is Maxwell Urich, who traveled from Washington, D.C. to Crooks's house, who was going with him to the shooting range. I'm just telling you, it smells. It stinks to high heaven. And you watch this guy, Ron Rowe, when he testified in Congress a month ago, and he got into a shouting match with a seated member of Congress and started talking about, you can't talk to me or question me because I served our country in the World Trade Center in 9/11. That's what you call a smoke screen. It's a pivot. It's a diversion. And, I've been a lawyer for 45 years. I worked for the district attorney in Bibb County, Georgia at the beginning of my career. I know what it looks like when somebody's trying to be fast and loose with the facts. We need a cleansing in America. All of it needs to come out. The January 6th facts need to come out. Liz Cheney's tampering with that witness who lied and said that Trump grabbed the wheel of the limousine after the rally on the ellipse that day. That turned out to be a lie. 3 Secret Service agents in the car said it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I want it all. Just
supposedly, President President Trump said he will finally give us the JFK files. The reason those JFK files are still locked up is because it does point to some alphabet soup agency. The actual players of this thing are long dead or in a home somewhere, or 1 foot in the grave, or both, the whole body's in the grave. But there's institutional information there about what happened there in JFK, and hopefully release it. The Epstein files, the Diddy files. So give me the Diddy files too. Let's see all these power players. Let's find out where all these people are at whenever various and the sundry things have been happening that have been very nasty and involve small children. That's why I think Mazie Hirono is asking these questions of these confirmation hearings. She might want to go around to the U.S. Senate and ask all of her colleagues there that have had millions and millions of dollars of slush funds for years in Congress paying off sexual harassment charges. She might want to ask those dirty questions to her own colleagues, because she's probably sitting around with a lot of perverts up there.
I think the number is $15 million that our taxpayers have forked over.
15 to 17, somewhere in that range, yeah.
Yeah, to basically cover up allegations of sexual misconduct by members of Congress. It is just, it's got to stop. And look, the fact of the matter is, I'm kind of a libertarian. What somebody does in their own life, I really don't care. Now that's going to upset some of my friends that are very devout, hardcore Christians, and I get it. I do try to live a Christian life. I work really hard to follow the 10 Commandments. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I am. I'm not trying to paint a picture here. But what I am saying is that, Jimmy, what you do in your life, as long as you're not harming someone, I don't really care. Yeah. You get to decide that, but so does your maker. Okay. Yeah. You want to condemn yourself to a life, an eternal life in hell? I think it's your choice. You want to shoot up with heroin? You want to become a heroin addict or a drug addict? Go to it. I'm not talking about you, Jimmy. I'm just talking about you. You understand I'm talking hyperbole. But to the average person, if you want to do that, go for it. Yeah. Just don't come to me for methadone treatment. Yeah. Don't become a ward of the state then.
The voice of John Gordon. John, you have your own program. It's called The Truth with John Gordon. How do folks follow you and get to watch your program?
Well, we're on the John Fredericks Radio Network every Saturday from 12 to 2, and then Sunday 1 to 3. You can go to John Fredericks' website and watch and listen to us on the live stream, or you can listen on the radio in Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, Richmond, Norfolk, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Morgantown, West Virginia. We're also on Getter, Rumble, YouTube Live, and X. So you got a lot of options there. I wish you'd come and listen. And if you like it, please subscribe. It really would help us. And we really are grateful for the opportunity we have to inform, and keeps my head in the game. That's the benefit for me.
Host of The Truth with John Gordon. Check it out. John, appreciate you, my friend. Next time we talk, we will have a new administration. A new sheriff will be in town in Washington, D.C., and from your lips, my lips, to God's ears, let's hope that he gets to do all the things that we hope he gets to do, exposing the deep state and the swamp that's up there. All right, my name is Jimmy. Nice to have you here. Don't forget, with that inauguration that's coming up on Monday, we're going to be doing a live show. This show Monday will be live. We will be at the Casbar Cigar Lounge in Lafayette, Colorado. If you're coming up from a different area, it's right kind of betwixt the Denver corridor and Boulder, right on the U.S. Highway 36. About 5 miles or so away from the University of Colorado campus, about 20 minutes out of downtown Denver, probably 35-minute drive from Fort Collins, and it's easy access. But we hope you'll join us. There's going to be a great food truck there. Tacos El Chilango is going to be there. We looked up what Chilango means. Chilango is a slur that rural Mexicans will use against people that are from Mexico City. They're called Chilangos. And that's why the taco truck. I didn't name the taco truck. I didn't name it a slur. Someone else did. But Tacos El Chilango, they'll start serving food about 7:30, 7:45. So bring your lunch money. There's cigars available. It's going to be a great time. First come, first serve. It's a free event. Doors will open just before 8 o'clock. So get there early and come and see us. It's going to be, I'll be there. Producer Chad will be there. People say, how long is the program going to go? It really depends on the technology. of whether we're able to kind of buzz in this feed of the inauguration and the speeches. If not, then we'll go a couple of hours. If we can get all of it, we'll go about 3 hours. But anyway, the party will go until you're done partying, and probably after the swearing in. A lot of folks are off work on Monday. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so a lot of folks are off work anyway. So come, and again, first come, first serve. It's going to be a very cold one outside, but we hope you'll join us Monday. And their very show will be happening live and in person at the Casbar Cigar Lounge in Lafayette, Colorado. And again, they have coffee there. They have some snacks. The Tacos El Chalingo truck will be there, serving up some breakfast burritos and things like that. So bring your lunch money. And if you're bothered by cigar smoke, it's going to be cold. You don't want to stand outside that day. So you might stay home, but it's going to be we're going to be smoking and celebrating the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States. All right, a couple of more news stories I want to get to. Then I want to do my stolen memes here. ESPN has announced that they are sorry. They should have covered. Remember the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans? There was a big patriotic thing, a terrorist attack on American soil, and ESPN did not cover any of the celebration. They didn't cover Notre Dame running out on the field with the flag in hand. And we'll talk more about this next week, but ESPN has admitted they screwed the pooch on that one. They messed it up really badly. And they said it was people in their corporate headquarters that didn't do it. And they said it was a big mistake on their part. Again, is there accountability? Is anybody going to get in trouble for it? I don't know. But ESPN's VP has said they really messed that one up. So we'll talk more about that. Because Monday, not only is it the inauguration, but it's also the national championship. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. I'm guessing no one cares. For some reason, that just doesn't excite me. I mean, I'm glad. I think most people are glad this Southeast Conference is not represented, unless it would have been the University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns. But is anybody excited about that game? I've been to college national championship games. I've attended them. I'm a secret Alabama fan when Alabama, I've been to Alabama's a couple of national championships here. Roll Tide, I like that. So, but I'm telling you, this does not excite me. Notre Dame versus Ohio State. Does it excite anybody out there? I don't know. I'm sure some people are excited about it, but I'm not that excited about it. Our Senator Cruz has introduced a bill in the U.S. Senate. We'll talk about this next week. We'll see where it goes. It's a bill for no tax on tips. Of course, that was a deal that President Trump suggested in his campaign stop in Las Vegas. And he said there should be no tax on tips. And so that bill has now been introduced by Senator Ted Cruz. All right, Kristi Noem is being questioned right now in the Homeland Security Committee. Horny Hirono, I don't believe, is on that committee. So if somebody in Hawaii can tell me how it is at Horny Hirono, did nobody else run for that Senate? Maisie Horny Hirono. She's a horny woman and wanting dirty stories, I think. Somebody tell me how she gets elected. I'd love to understand. And if you're watching these clowns of these Senate committees, you have to say, my goodness, we have fallen out. We used to be a proper culture. We used to be a proper society. And then you watch these people getting elected and you have to say, really? I mean, even this guy, I know he's an icon to the American left, but listen to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders freaking out. Bernie Sanders looks like the mad scientist, mad professor. It just inability to orate, inability to communicate, this kind of stuff. And you say, God, it's almost embarrassing to see old Bernie Sanders up there. And the hypocrisy of Bernie Sanders was a multimillionaire. He didn't start out to be a multimillionaire. He became a multimillionaire when he let the DNC kick his little cowardly ass out of the race. He would have beat Hillary Clinton in a primary, but they rigged the system against him. And Bernie Sanders is not man enough to call out the system. He says he's against the system. He wants to rage against the machine. Bernie Sanders got steamrolled by the system, got steamrolled by the Clinton crime family. But in order to pay him off, they bought him a couple of houses and in wherever he's from, and they bought him a house there. So Bernie Sanders acts like he's a real man and he's going to stand against the oligarchs. Listen, Bernie Sanders has been rolled by the political party that he's caucuses with, the Democrats. They have walked on him like a doormat, and Bernie Sanders is too cowardly to stand up. So anyway, listen to this line of questioning. This is Scott Bessent, who is our nominee for Treasury Secretary. Real smart fellow from what I can tell. And Bernie's wanting to see if he's going to be upset about the oligarchs. Or the oligarchs. Joe Biden's talking about the oligarchs. He's got to be upset about the oligarchs. And Scott Bessent said, Joe Biden's not that upset about the oligarchs. He gave a Medal of Freedom to an oligarch last week. Listen to the exchange. But just watch the craziness of Bernie Sanders. And you just have to say, yeah, he's He's kind of nutso. Here we go.
And down the income.
No, that's not really the answer. I mean, even if you had them,
Oh, hang on. Start at the beginning.
we have a corrupt campaign finance system in which a small number of billionaires in both political parties make huge contributions into the presidential and congressional campaigns. When you have a small number of multi-billionaires who have enormous economic, media, and political power, would you agree with President Biden, who last night stated, and I quote, "An oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights, and freedoms," end of quote. That's what President Biden said last night. I agree with him. Do you?
Senator Sanders, I enjoyed our visit.
Talk a little bit closer into the mic.
I enjoyed our visit, and I hope you got my follow-up materials that on the discussions, my previous
Thank you.
writings on the tariffs and China. And look, the three billionaires who you listed, that all made the money themselves. Mr. Musk came to the country as an immigrant.
I understand that.
So Bernie Sanders is there. He's all talking about the oligarchs. He goes, well, are they really oligarchs? They made the money themselves. Like, Musk came as an immigrant. Sanders is just so outraged by rich people. I'm angry with the rich people. I don't care how they made their money. Well, Bernie, you're a rich fat cat now. But you're a rich fat cat because you sold your soul to the Democrat Party. You let Bernie Sanders enterprise took money and benefited by letting Hillary kick your ass in a primary once or twice. You got steamrolled by the Democrat Party, but they bought you off. At least Elon Musk created something besides, like you, Bernie Sanders.
Well, what I'm asking you is, when you have a handful of people like Musk, who will soon be part of the Trump administration, and others, when you have three people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, when these people have enormous influence over the media, when they spend huge amounts of money in both political parties to elect candidates, what Biden said last night is we're moving toward an oligarchy. I'm asking you that question. Do you think, forget how they made their money, do you think that when so few people have so much wealth and so much economic and political power, that is an oligarchic form of society?
Well, I would note that President Biden gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to two people who I think would qualify for his oligarchs. So
this is not a condemnation of any one individual. I'm just asking you, would so few people have so much wealth and power?
But
do you think that is an oligarchic form of society?
Senator, I think it depends on the ability to.
I gotta stop it. We run over there. It's so funny. Bernie Sanders acting as if he's offended by rich people, all concentrated in one area and having a lot of power. Isn't that what we would call the U.S. Senate? A bunch of rich people. We don't know how they got their wealth. People that make less than $200,000 a year all leave the Congress and the Senate and the House. They leave multimillionaires. So we're run by a bunch of oligarchs in our government. We're run by oligarchs there. Anyway, Bernie Sanders acting as if he's horrified by this concentration of media power that seemingly is kissing the ring of Donald Trump. Was Bernie Sanders concerned about Facebook and Twitter and the social media platforms of this concentration of media back when they were on his side? Back when they were helping Joe Biden get elected and spreading lies about Russia, and squelching the information about the Hunter Biden laptop? If Bernie Sanders is that concerned about big, fat, powerful entities giving away money and wielding influence, and Bernie Sanders, how did you become a multimillionaire? If you've never had a real job, you did your honeymoon in Moscow, which is kind of weird. You've never really had a real job. Has he even written a book? He's basically been in politics, and yet he's worth a lot of money. Why? Because he took money from the Democrat Party. And somebody else asked a question in the chat room: has Bernie Sanders ever taken money from George Soros? I want to talk about Elon Musk. Are they worried about George Soros? And here's another question. Why is it that the Zuckerberg story, where Zuckerberg has now announced that the Biden administration screamed, yelled, and threatened Meta and Facebook to pull stories down and to censor people, why is it that ABC, NBC, CBS have not really covered that story. That should be a very, very big story, but it's not. And if Zuckerberg was told to squelch stories at Meta, you have to ask yourself, was CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, were they also told to squelch stories? There's a cover-up here that happens in the media, and there's also a cover-up by jackasses like Bernie Sanders sitting there waving his arms like a madman and acting as if he's horrified by money, and yet Bernie Sanders is a case-in-point example that he acts like he's going to rage against a machine. Bernie Sanders has been bought and paid for by the Democrat Party. He carries the water for the Democrat Party, and Bernie Sanders made a heck of a lot of money by letting Hillary bend him over her knee and give her a whooping. And I hope he let horny Hirono watch it because she's into that kind of stuff. All right, let's do the stolen meme section. The stolen meme section of the program. Here we go. Gavin, here's Gavin Newsom. We continue. He's a food for fodder. Stolen memes. We steal these from all over the internet, and we're shamelessly admit we steal them. This is a Babylon Bee meme. Gavin Newsom rushes into the burning building to inform fire victims that Trump is bad. That sounds like Gavin, doesn't it? It's all about Trump. Trump does this. Gavin, you're an incompetent boob when it comes to leadership. You're a disgusting governor. You've failed the people of California. Donald Trump is bad. The Trump derangement syndrome still stands, my friends. These people still have it. Here's one. Remember when they told us this about the COVID? We talked about this, the Booger Cootie virus. Remember when they told us, and I do remember this, they said some of the symptoms of having the COVID could be that you don't have symptoms. Anybody remember that? It was a true thing. There are so many Fauci memes out there. And ask the question, what? Yeah, there's people that think that Fauci is going to get a preemptive pardon, and I'm trying to figure out, if you think that, what do you think he would be charged with? What do you think that Dr. Fauci would be charged with if they're going to give him a preemptive pardon? If old demented Joe or Jill or whoever's running the country has to give him a preemptive pardon, then you have to think they have something in their head. Boy, if they were not careful, Dr. Fauci could be charged with this crime, and therefore, what would that crime be? There's got to be a crime. There's got to be a crime that a judge is going to go, yeah, that's a legitimate charge. You can do that. Here's another stolen meme. This is Joe Biden's final weekend in Washington, D.C., walking off on the horizon, politics right now. And this is probably what Joe Biden has going on in his mind. As California burns, the country is worse off than it was 4 years ago. His popularity is worse than any exiting president in modern history. This is Joe Biden saying, my work here is done. Hope he's proud. This is the legacy that Joe Biden's leaving behind. His work here is done. By the way, there is probably more damage. Probably some more pardons, probably some more commutations coming, and we've talked about those throughout the course of the program. Anybody still watch The View? The View has been kind of quiet lately, haven't they? Haven't heard much about the ladies of The View. Well, this is them probably today and every day in the Trump administration walking into The View. This is what they look like going into work, a bunch of little witches and ogres, and we stole that obviously from the Rubin Report, so there you can see that on there. California is revolting, evidently. Now, the poll numbers in California, we'll see how they pan. But this is a sign. Literally, this is heading down the highway in California. California is revolting. People are putting these kind of signs up all over the state out there. If you're in California, let me know. There's a poll that they did that said that Californians don't blame Gavin Newsom for the fire. And I think you got to be careful how you phrase that, because Gavin Newsom didn't light the fire that we know of. But it's the response to the fire. I think if you phrase the question right, people will say something different. All right, one more. Anybody trying to lose weight in this new year and try to trim down a little bit? There's all these things. Well, Ozempic is expensive. And so maybe this is a great way for you to lose weight this year, is just do that. And you don't have to get those injections for the Ozempic that they offer. There's a couple of those things that are those appetite suppressant things. But yeah, if you can't afford it, I would suggest you go to your veterinarian and see if you can get one of these cones of shame and walk around with that. And now, if you do get the cone of shame, you won't be able to lick your balls. Well, that's what they put them on the dogs for. If the dog gets his vasectomy, he gets fixed, he gets neutered, then they put that on there so he can't lick his balls. And so the downside of wearing that is that if you're into that kind of thing, like horny Hirono, you would not be able to lick your balls. I don't know. I just made that up. That wasn't on I have no script. There is no script here. Yeah, but there is a downside because then well, you could tell horny Hirono at the U.S. Senate, you could say, hey, I did not harass anybody because I wear this all the time, a cone, and I don't even get to harass my own self anymore because of that. Hey, Monday, join us. Casbar Cigar, Lafayette, Colorado. We're going to be there. I'm going to be there live. Producer Chad will be there live. We're going to broadcast the whole thing starting at 8 o'clock. Doors will open just before 8 o'clock. You can Google it. It's in Lafayette, Colorado. Cigars, a great food truck going to be there. My phone's a couple of people going, did you just say if you wear that, you can't lick your balls? Well, that's what they put them on the dog for. If you put a cone of shame on a dog, it's because if you put a cone of shame on a dog, that's what they're doing it for. I've had my dog. I always get the dog neutered, and the dog's neutered, and it has to wear that thing, and he's walking around humiliated and shameful because not only did we cut off his doghood or his manhood, but now he can't lick it. And he's bothered by that for a period of time. And so there... I don't know. All right, question of the day. Did anybody, by the way, in the whole chat room, did anybody feel bad for Joe Biden? I don't think anybody felt bad for Jill Biden, did they? Nobody feels bad for Jill. Jill, basically, Nancy might have shivved you. She might have stabbed you in the back. But you know what? I don't know why I said lick the balls. It just came out of my mouth like that. So if wearing one of those, I mean... I think I saw what came across my text machine here. If wearing one of those means I can't lick, then I'm going to stay fat. You people are crazy. It's just nuts here. Scott says my wife is laughing uncontrollably. Is she laughing at me or is she laughing at you trying to lick your? Never mind. I'm not going to. Shooting from the hip again. Great stuff. All right. I don't know. But we lost control here. If anybody shows up at this cigar party, inauguration party on Monday with a cone of shame, don't do that. Just don't. Come smoke a cigar and enjoy it. All right. We've lost our minds here. Lost our mind. All right, watch out for the preemptive pardons. Hey, wherever you, Arloa says, I do not feel bad for Jill Biden. Nobody seems to be, because Jill Biden should have stepped in and told her husband to stand down long ago. And instead, somebody said that, I think Laura Carno posted up earlier, that perhaps Jill Biden should be preemptively pardoned because she should be charged with elder abuse. You know, there's a lot to say about that. Jill, as much as I don't like Joe Biden, the sad thing is they allowed him to be humiliated in a way that probably he did not need to be humiliated had they had some decency as a family and stepped in there and said, stop it. It's kind of like those last few times that you saw Jimmy Carter and he was laying back and his mouth was open. You're like, don't do that to the guy. There's national cameras around. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let him live his best days and live his life. Anyway, all right. Rachel just said there are 2,500 more pardons coming. There were a bunch of commutations that happened overnight. I don't know if that's the same 2,500, but 2,500. And supposedly, I haven't looked at all of them, they are drug cases that people were charged, but their sentence was given more than what the modern law is. So the laws have changed, and under previous laws, they were charged with a stiffer sentence, but now the sentencing has changed. And so I'm not sure if that's another 2,500 or not, but it's, we'll find out. We'll keep a sharp eye on it over the weekend. Hey, everybody, go like us on the YouTube, like us on the Rumble, and do even better if you're watching us on Rumble. Once this is done and you see it populate, would you share it? Would you use hashtag Lakey Unleashed? If you would, I would appreciate it if you're on the YouTube as well. Do that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got to go. It's wrapping it up. We'll see you Monday morning live on the broadcast show, live at the Casbar Cigar. Everybody enjoy your great weekend. Deep freeze is going to set in across America this week. Hey, may God bless you. May God bless America. I'll see you Monday, Inauguration Day. Jimmy Lakey. Hey, donate to my charity if you would. riverspromise.org. riverspromise.org. Love to have your donation. We're a little short on the funding this week, this month. So riverspromise.org. God bless you. God bless America. Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of You're loitering, everybody. I see you. I see, and you're loitering. Maybe you're at your computer going to make a donation to charity, right? Riverspromise.org. Riverspromise.org. Help a child. $30 feeds a kid 2 meals a day for a whole month. Riverspromise.org. See you Monday at the inauguration party, right? God bless you. God bless America. Now, run along. Run along. There's nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Yeah. I'll see you Monday.